Alright, listen up, because I'm only gonna tell this story once. You think you know what it's like to be laughed at, to be told you're worthless, to have your dreams crushed under the heel of someone else's doubt? Well, let me paint you a picture. I was standing there in the middle of a packed conference hall, the stench of betrayal and fabricated data hanging heavy in the air. I had just blown the whistle on the biggest scandal in biomedical research history. And what did I get for my trouble? A public shaming, a career in ruins, and a family that turned their backs on me like I was some kind of pariah. My own mother looked at me with disgust, my father with shame. You've brought disgrace on this family, they said. You're an embarrassment. You'll never amount to anything. But you know what? They were wrong, dead wrong. And I'm here to tell you how I proved them wrong, how I turned their laughter into tears of regret. I left that life behind, packed my bags, and headed out to the middle of nowhere. I found a rundown shack by the sea and I set up shop. I was done with the lies, the politics, the backstabbing. I was done with people telling me what I could and couldn't do. I was going to decode the language of the whales, and I was going to save the oceans, one sound at a time. The locals thought I was crazy. My own family thought I was a joke. Bioacoustics? They scoffed. That's not real science. You're just chasing a dream, kid. Wake up and smell the coffee. But I didn't wake up. I dove in deeper. I spent days, weeks, months out on the water, listening, recording, analyzing. I was obsessed, possessed even. I was a man on a mission and nothing was going to stop me. And then one day, it happened. I decoded a sequence, a pattern in the whale songs that no one had ever noticed before. It was a call for help, a distress signal, and it was directed at me. I followed that signal, and what I found changed everything. I found a pod of whales, stranded, dying. But I also found the cause, a sonic boom from a nearby military base, disrupting their navigation. I had the evidence, the data, the proof, and I had the solution. I worked tirelessly, using my knowledge of bioacoustics to create a countersignal, a beacon to guide the whales back to safety. It was a long, grueling process, but I didn't give up. I couldn't. I had to prove them wrong. And prove them wrong I did. The whales were saved, the military base was shut down, and I was hailed as a hero. But that was just the beginning. I took my findings, my data, my passion, and I turned it into a global movement. I transformed barren lands into thriving ecosystems, restored coral reefs, saved entire species from extinction. I became a name, a brand, a force to be reckoned with. And then one day, I decided it was time to go home. I wanted to see the looks on their faces, to watch the color drain from their cheeks as they realized they had been wrong all along. I rolled up in a limo, dressed in a suit that cost more than their house. I walked into the living room, where they were all gathered, and I said, "Surprise, family, I'm home." They looked at me, their jaws dropping, their eyes widening. They tried to speak, but no words came out. They were stunned, shocked, speechless. I smiled, a slow, satisfied smile. "Remember when you told me I was an embarrassment? Remember when you laughed at my dreams? When you said I'd never amount to anything? Well, look at me now." I pulled out my phone, showed them the headlines, the awards, the accolades. I showed them the pictures, the videos, the proof of what I had accomplished. And I watched as the realization dawned on their faces, as the weight of their past derision crashed down on them like a ton of bricks. My mother started to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs. My father looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of pride and regret. "I'm sorry, son," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry." But I didn't want their apologies. I wanted them to feel it, to understand the pain they had caused, the doubt they had sown. I wanted them to see the power of belief, the strength of conviction, the triumph of the human spirit. So I stood there, tall and proud, And I said, "It's too late for sorry, but it's not too late for you to learn. It's not too late for you to see the error of your ways, to understand the power of belief, the strength of conviction, the triumph of the human spirit. Because that's what I have. That's what I've always had. And that's what I'll always have." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them to their tears, their regrets, their newfound understanding. I had come home to prove a point, to show them what they'd missed, to make them see the error of their ways. And I had done just that. But more than that, I had come home to forgive, to let go of the past, to move on, to live in the present. Because that's what life is about. It's about learning, growing, changing. It's about believing in yourself even when no one else does. It's about never giving up, never backing down, never letting anyone tell you that you can't. And that, my friends, is my story. The story of a man who was laughed at, who was told he was worthless, who was betrayed by his own family, but who didn't let it break him, who didn't let it stop him, who didn't let it define him. Because he knew deep down in his heart that he was destined for greatness, and he was going to prove it no matter what it took. So, here's to the dreamers, the believers, the doers. Here's to the ones who don't give up, who don't back down, who don't let anyone tell them they can't. Here's to the ones who know deep down in their hearts that they are destined for greatness, because you are, and I am, and together we can change the world. Now, who is ready to make some noise?